You know, sometimes God will hide your greatest clarity inside your darkest season. Have you ever been in a place where the lights went out, not just around you, but in you? Where the path that used to be clear suddenly disappears, and all you can do is feel your way through the unknown. I came to tell somebody today, darkness doesn't mean absence. Sometimes it means instruction, because there are some things you will never see until you learn how to see in the dark. Vision is forged in obscurity, not invisibility. When we talk about vision, most people imagine clarity, seeing everything laid out perfectly, understanding every step, knowing where life is taking you. But that's not where true vision is born. True vision isn't created in moments of light. It's refined in the shadows, in the uncertainty, in those seasons where nothing seems to make sense. Vision is not the product of clarity. It is the result of trust. It's in the hidden places, the in-between seasons, where God molds the eyes of your spirit to see what your natural eyes cannot. There are moments when life deliberately turns the lights off. The relationships you thought were solid dissolve. The plans you had crumble, and the prayers you prayed seem unanswered. You start asking God, why can't I see what's next? Why am I in the dark? But what if the darkness isn't punishment? What if it's preparation? Because it is in obscurity, in the unseen and the unknown, that vision is purified. The darkness strips away distractions, forces you to listen deeper, and teaches you to discern the faint whispers of divine direction. When everything is visible, you rely on sight. But when everything is hidden, you learn to rely on something higher, insight. Sight shows you what is, insight shows you what can be. In the light, you can depend on yourself, your intellect, your logic. In the dark, you have no choice but to depend on something greater, the spirit within you. That's where real vision begins to take shape. It's in those moments where your natural senses fail you that your spiritual senses begin to develop. Think about it. Every great vision in history began in obscurity. David received his calling not on the battlefield, but in the shadows of a field no one noticed. Joseph saw his dreams while imprisoned in a pit, and later in a prison cell, places no one would have chosen, yet that's where the vision was forged. Jesus himself spent years hidden, unrecognized in carpentry before stepping into his public ministry. Obscurity is not absence. It's the forge of divine destiny. When God gives you a vision, he doesn't hand you a finished product. He gives you a seed, and seeds grow in the dark. You don't plant a seed in sunlight. You bury it in the soil where no one can see it. That darkness is not death. It's development. Something is forming beneath the surface. And if you dig it up too soon, if you demand to see before you're ready, you'll interrupt the process. Some of us are frustrated because we're trying to live in harvest season while God is still working in the soil. The darkness is where identity forms. When you can't see the applause, when you're not getting the validation, when no one is clapping for you, that's when you learn who you really are. Visibility can trick you into thinking you're further along than you are, but obscurity keeps you grounded, humble, dependent. It forces you to find worth not in how others see you, but in how God sees you. That's why some people are kept in the dark longer, not because they're forgotten, but because their vision is too big to be rushed. In visibility, the pressure to perform can distort your purpose. But in obscurity, there's room to fail quietly, to experiment, to grow, to be processed without the world watching. That process is holy. It's the place where the inner eye learns to focus on the invisible, to see promise in pain, to see potential in disappointment. When you learn to see in obscurity, no amount of darkness can intimidate you again. There's a moment in every visionary's life when God will ask, can you still trust me when you can't trace me? It's easy to have faith when you understand the plan. But the true test of vision is believing that purpose still exists even when the path disappears. Vision doesn't just show you where you're going. It anchors you when you can't move. It tells you, stay right here. Something is forming even if you can't see it yet. You see, light can sometimes lie to you. It can create illusions of progress, busy schedules, visible success, external approval, and make you think you're walking in purpose when you're actually drifting. Darkness, however, tells the truth. It reveals what's really in your heart. When the lights go out, your motives are tested. Do you still serve when no one sees? Do you still create when no one applauds? Do you still believe when nothing looks like the promise? That's where real vision is proven. Vision is not about what you can see around you. It's about what you can see within you. It's the ability to perceive destiny in the distance, even when the environment looks contradictory. And the only way to cultivate that kind of sight is to walk through seasons of obscurity. You don't get vision by looking, you get it by becoming. The dark places shape you into the kind of person who can handle what you've been shown. When you finally step into the light, you'll realize that the darkness was never your enemy, it was your training ground. Every tear, every delay, every disappointment was sharpening your perception, teaching you how to navigate with sensitivity instead of certainty. You were learning to see with your spirit, not your senses. Because those who only see in the light will falter when shadows come, but those who have learned to see in the dark, they walk with a different kind of confidence. The irony of vision is that it's not clearest when life is clear, it's clearest when life is cloudy. Because in the cloud, your reliance shifts. You stop chasing outcomes and start pursuing alignment. You stop asking what's next and start asking, who am I becoming? You stop worrying about clarity and start cultivating capacity. That's what obscurity does. It enlarges your inner world so that when the external doors open, you're ready. So if you find yourself in a dark season right now, if things don't make sense, if you feel hidden, overlooked, or uncertain, don't despise the obscurity. Don't rush to escape it. Stay there. Listen. There's vision being forged in you. The same darkness that confuses you today will clarify you tomorrow. One day you'll look back and realize that the blindness you hated was actually birthing your sight. Vision is not born when you finally see the light. Vision is born when you decide to keep walking even when you can't. It's in that sacred tension between what you can't see and what you still believe that purpose takes form. Because in the end, true vision isn't about what's visible, it's about what's inevitable. And sometimes the only way to discover that inevitability is to learn how to see in the dark. Darkness reveals what light can distract you from. It's easy to love the light. It's comfortable. It's warm. It makes you feel like everything is in order, like everything is working. When the lights are on, you can see your progress. You can see your plan. You can even see people's approval. But here's the truth. Sometimes the very thing you call light can blind you. Sometimes what feels like clarity can actually be the greatest distraction from what's real, what's deep, what's divine. There are moments when God will dim the lights of your life, not to punish you, but to protect you, to help you see what the brightness has been hiding all along. Light can be deceptive. It can make things appear closer or better than they really are. It can make noise look like movement. The light of success, of visibility, of constant doing can keep you busy, but not necessarily purposeful. When everything is going right, when the doors are opening and people are applauding, it's easy to get caught up in performance, to mistake activity for alignment. You start building your worth around what you can produce rather than who you're becoming. That's what the light does. It keeps your eyes focused outward on everything and everyone else. But darkness turns your gaze inward. It takes away what's external so you can finally confront what's internal. When you can't see what's ahead, you're forced to feel what's within. You begin to notice your fears, your insecurities, your hidden motives. Darkness exposes what light lets you ignore. It reveals the parts of you that don't get attention when life is easy. That's why sometimes God will allow the light to fade, not to destroy your confidence, but to rebuild it on something stronger than visibility. In the light, you can hide, you can perform, you can distract yourself with the illusion of progress. But in the dark, there's no hiding, there's only truth. Darkness is where God deals with what you've been avoiding. Your wounds, your pride, your dependence on people's applause. When everything slows down and you can't rely on your usual routines, that's when you hear the whisper of truth. The dark forces you to stop pretending. It strips you of the mask you wear in the light. It calls you back to authenticity. It's in the dark that your motives are tested. Why do you really want what you want? Is it for validation or for purpose? Is it for applause or for alignment? In the light, those questions are easy to ignore because the noise of success drowns them out. But in the dark, silence amplifies everything. You can't run from yourself there. You start realizing that maybe some of what you called vision was actually ambition. That some of what you called calling was really comfort. Darkness clarifies what light can't. You see, light shows you what's visible, but darkness shows you what's valuable. When everything is stripped away, what's left? Who are you when there's no audience? Who are you when there's no platform, no applause, no progress? The dark answers those questions. It teaches you that value isn't measured by visibility. The hidden season is not a downgrade, it's a purification. It's where your foundation gets checked. Because if your identity depends on the light, you'll fall apart when it fades. But if your identity is built in the dark, no level of exposure can shake you. Sometimes the darkness comes as loss, the end of a relationship, a failed plan, a door that closed too soon. Sometimes it comes as silence, the unanswered prayers, the waiting seasons where heaven feels quiet, but every dark moment carries revelation. It's in those moments that you learn what you really believe about God, about yourself, about purpose. When you can't feel him, will you still trust him? When you can't see the path, will you still walk forward? That's where faith matures. Faith doesn't grow in the light, it grows in the dark. Because when you can't rely on sight, you learn to rely on sound, the quiet voice of God that says, keep going, I'm still here. Darkness is not your enemy, it's your mirror. It reflects back to you the parts of your soul that light has allowed you to overlook. It shows you your attachments, your dependencies, your fears. It reveals who's really for you. And sometimes it reveals who's only there for the light you carry. When the glow of your success fades, you discover the truth about relationships. Some people love your light but can't handle your dark. That's okay. The dark doesn't just reveal you to yourself, it reveals others to you too. There's something sacred about the dark because it slows everything down. You stop striving. You stop forcing. You start listening. It's there you realize that maybe the light was too loud, too many opinions, too many options, too much noise. The dark brings simplicity. It makes you focus on essentials. It trains you to discern what really matters. You start to see how much of what you called important was temporary and how much of what you ignored was eternal. That's why some revelations only come in dark seasons. You can't see stars during the day, only at night. The things that guide you most clearly often appear when everything else disappears. When your plans collapse, your true purpose becomes visible. When the path is hidden, your character is exposed. When you can't see the end, your endurance is tested. That's the revelation of darkness. It teaches you to find light within yourself. It's in the dark that creativity is born. When you lose the familiar, your imagination wakes up. When resources dry up, innovation shows up. When comfort leaves, calling gets louder. The dark environment presses the gift out of you. You begin to create not from convenience, but from conviction. You start to lead not because it's easy, but because you must. Darkness doesn't destroy you, it demands a deeper version of you. And here's the paradox. When you learn to see in the dark, you start appreciating it. You stop rushing through it. You understand that the dark isn't something to escape, it's something to explore. It's where intimacy with God deepens, where maturity is born, where clarity becomes internal instead of external. Because the light of understanding will fade, the light of people's approval will fade, but the light that God ignites in you during the dark, that stays every time you walk through a dark season and come out wiser, calmer, more grounded. You carry that light forward. You begin to see differently even when you're in the light again. You discern distractions faster. You recognize illusions sooner. You no longer chase everything that shines because you've learned that not all light is truth. Some things that glow are meant to blind you. But darkness taught you how to tell the difference. So don't be afraid of the dark. Don't rush to flip the switch. Stay there long enough to see what it's showing you. The dark has a language. It speaks in silence, in stillness, in reflection. And when you listen closely, you'll realize it's not emptiness, it's instruction. It's not a void, it's a vessel. Everything you need to know about who you are and what truly matters is being whispered there. Darkness is not just an absence of light, it's an invitation to revelation. The world may celebrate what shines, but heaven develops what's hidden. And sometimes God will turn off the lights in your life so you can finally see, not with your eyes, but with your spirit. Because it's in the dark that illusions die, truth emerges, and vision becomes pure. The dark reveals what the light has been too bright to show you. And when you come out of it, you don't just see differently. You are different. Faith isn't seeing with your eyes, it's seeing with your spirit. There comes a point in every journey where the physical senses fail you, where logic no longer explains what's happening, where sight can't interpret what you feel. That's where faith begins. Faith doesn't operate by what the natural eye can perceive. It functions from a deeper dimension, one that sees possibility where reality shows limitation. The eyes in your head may see obstacles, but the eyes in your spirit see opportunity. The eyes in your head may see endings, but the eyes in your spirit see beginnings disguised as closures. We've been conditioned to trust what we can see. From childhood, we're taught that seeing is believing, that if you can't prove it, if you can't touch it, if you can't measure it, it isn't real. But the kingdom of God works in reverse. Faith says, believe it, and then you'll see it. Faith requires you to walk toward a destination you've never been to based on a word that only you heard. It's not logical. It's relational. It's trust in motion. Faith doesn't need confirmation to move. It needs conviction. It doesn't wait for evidence. It creates evidence. When God gives you a word, He doesn't show you the whole path. He shows you the next step. Because if He showed you everything, you wouldn't need faith. The light of faith shines just far enough for obedience. You take one step and the next step is revealed. That's the rhythm of divine progress. Revelation follows movement. Seeing with your spirit means learning to trust the invisible more than the visible. It means understanding that what's unseen is often more powerful than what's seen. Everything visible started as invisible. Every building started as a vision. Every miracle started as a belief. Every dream, every purpose, every transformation began as something you couldn't see with your eyes, but you could feel it deep in your soul. Faith is the bridge between what is and what can be. It's the inner lens that allows you to perceive God's fingerprints even in chaos. When the natural eye sees disorder, faith sees design. When sight sees delay, faith sees development. When sight sees rejection, faith sees redirection. Faith isn't blind, it simply sees from a different elevation. It looks past what is obvious and locks onto what is eternal. Sometimes God will intentionally close your natural eyes so that your spiritual eyes can open. You'll find yourself in situations where nothing looks like the promise He gave you. The door you prayed for remains shut. The opportunity you thought was certain falls through. The people you depended on walk away. You start thinking maybe you heard wrong. Maybe the vision wasn't real. But faith doesn't depend on confirmation from the environment. It depends on conviction in the heart. It says, even when I can't see the result, I still trust the source. That's why faith feels uncomfortable. It requires you to walk through darkness carrying only a word. It forces you to detach your confidence from circumstances and attach it to something immovable. It's easy to have faith when everything aligns. It's harder when nothing does, and that's when real faith is born. Faith matures not in the light of clarity, but in the fog of uncertainty. When everything around you says give up and something inside says keep going, that's faith whispering louder than fear. Seeing with your spirit means learning to translate what God shows you even when it doesn't make sense to others. People around you may not see it because it wasn't given to them. Vision is often personal before it becomes public. That's why faith sometimes feels lonely. You're holding on to something no one else can see. But remember, Noah built an ark before there was rain. Abraham walked toward a land he'd never seen. Mary believed in a promise that defied biology. Faith has always been the language of pioneers. It's the ability to live now as if what God said has already happened. The danger of living by sight is that sight is limited by time and space. It can only perceive what's in front of it. But faith transcends that limitation. It sees beyond the current moment. It doesn't deny the facts. It just refuses to let the facts dictate the future. Faith acknowledges reality but insists on a higher reality. It looks at lack and sees provision. It looks at pain and sees purpose. It looks at endings and sees evolution. Faith isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to move forward despite it. It's not pretending everything's fine. It's believing that everything will be used for your good. Seeing with your spirit is learning to interpret situations through the lens of purpose rather than panic. When your spirit sees, you realize that even the setbacks are setups, that even the waiting is working, that even silence is speaking. The spiritual eye doesn't just see where you are, it sees who you are becoming. It looks beyond the surface of circumstances and recognizes transformation in progress. That's why faith often demands patience. You can't rush spiritual sight. You have to sit in the tension between what you believe and what you see, knowing that what's unseen is already taking shape. Faith also refines perception. It teaches you to see people differently, not just for who they are, but for who they're becoming. It teaches you to see yourself differently, not through the lens of failure, but through the lens of grace. When your spirit sees, shame loses power, fear loses voice, and doubt loses grip. You start seeing not just with hope, but with certainty that what God begins, He completes. Sometimes faith looks foolish. It makes you build when there's no blueprint, speak when there's no proof, and stand when there's no support. But that's the paradox. What looks foolish in the eyes of sight is often wisdom in the eyes of spirit. The world calls it risk. Heaven calls it trust. The moment you step beyond what you can see, you step into what God can do. To see with your spirit is to live from a place of conviction, not convenience. It's to understand that you're guided by something greater than your five senses. The physical eye will show you obstacles, but the spiritual eye will reveal options. The physical eye will notice the storm, but the spiritual eye will see the hand of God in the waves. The physical eye will panic when the boat shakes, but the spiritual eye will remember that Jesus is still on board. The more you walk by faith, the clearer your spirit becomes. You start to realize that what you thought was uncertainty was actually divine navigation. That the closed doors weren't rejections, but redirections. That the detours were not delays, but development. Faith rewires how you interpret life. You stop asking, why me? And start asking, what's God doing in me? Faith isn't about ignoring what's real. It's about trusting what's more real. The unseen world is where destiny begins, where miracles are formed, where purpose is shaped. To see with your spirit is to live aware that you are not limited to what you can touch or count. You are connected to something eternal, and that connection gives you permission to believe beyond what is visible. In the end, faith is not about predicting outcomes. It's about preserving perspective. It keeps you steady when the world shakes. It gives you courage to move when you don't have the map. It teaches you that vision is not what your eyes capture, it's what your heart carries. And when the light goes out and everything around you says you're lost, faith rises and says, no, I'm led. So when you can't see your way through, don't panic. Close your eyes and open your spirit. The eyes in your head may see darkness, but the eyes in your heart see destiny. Faith isn't waiting for light to appear. It's walking like the light is already there. Because in truth, it is. The God who began the work is still guiding your steps, even in the dark. And once you learn to see with your spirit, you'll never fear blindness again. You'll realize that sight is a gift, but faith is vision on another level. As we bring this message together, seeing in the dark, I want you to understand something profound. Darkness was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to develop you. Every shadow you've walked through, every uncertain night you've cried through, every door that closed when you thought it should open, none of it was wasted. Those moments were classrooms. Those tears were teachers. The dark was not the absence of God's hand. It was the shaping of your vision. You see, light is wonderful. It's beautiful. It's comfortable, but it can be deceptive. It makes us think we're seeing clearly when sometimes we're only seeing what's obvious. The real seeing, the deep seeing, happens when there's no light to guide you. Because that's when you learn to depend on something greater, something within. That's when vision is no longer about what's in front of you, but what's inside of you. When you learn to see in the dark, you start walking differently. You stop fearing uncertainty because you understand that clarity doesn't come from your environment. It comes from your faith. You stop begging for easy seasons because you realize that hard seasons birth holy sight. You start recognizing that every night carries a hidden light, and that light is you. Maybe right now you're in a place where you can't see the way forward. Maybe you're in a season of waiting, confusion, or quiet. Maybe everything you built seems to be falling apart. But can I tell you something? You're not lost. You're being led. The darkness you're in is not evidence of God's absence. It's evidence of your evolution. He's not punishing you. He's positioning you. Because when God wants to sharpen your vision, He dims the lights. When He wants to deepen your faith, He hides the path. And when He wants to reveal your strength, He lets you walk through shadows. But if you keep walking not by sight, but by spirit, you'll discover that what felt like an ending was actually an introduction. You'll realize that the dark didn't take your light. It taught you how to carry it. So don't curse the darkness. Learn from it. Don't run from the obscurity. Rest in it. Because the same God who formed stars in the night sky is forming something luminous in you. The same God who speaks light into chaos is speaking destiny into your confusion. The same God who guided Moses through the wilderness, who met Daniel in the lion's den, who called Lazarus out of the tomb, that same God is with you right now in your midnight. And when you come through it, because you will come through it, you won't just see differently, you'll be different. Your eyes will be trained for the unseen. Your heart will be tuned to divine frequency. Your steps will carry a confidence that doesn't depend on conditions. You'll walk through life understanding that faith isn't a backup plan, it's the only plan. So tonight, as you leave this space, don't ask God to turn the lights back on. Ask Him to help you see better in the dark. Because maybe, just maybe, the darkness you're in isn't hiding the path, it is the path. And if you keep walking by faith, one day you'll look back and realize that what once terrified you actually trained you. The dark didn't end you, it enlightened you. And that's what it means to truly see in the dark.